Head over to the phones. Glad to welcome to the program State Senator Matt Murphy. He's got time out of his day. Senator, good morning to you.
Good to be with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Oh, well, we're glad to have you on the show. How's everything going this morning? It's been a while since you've been on with us.
Too long, as a matter of fact. I'm glad to be back. We enjoy my time up in Rockford, and my roommate in Springfield, Senator Severson.
Oh, we're sorry about that.
I'm going to see him later. Oh, believe me, I will take all condolences. They're all earned.
How many damage deposits has that guy cost you by this time?
Well, no, the biggest problem is he buys ice cream for me. By the time I get home from Springfield, I need to go into ice cream detox.
Yeah, see, he's insidious that way. He'll do that, just try to make himself look better.
That's right. And he does.
He does. Okay.
We've spent a lot of time talking about the Neighborhood Recovery Initiative investigation. You had a news conference this week along with State Rep Ron Sendak, hoping the governor is going to testify, hoping the governor will come forward and say what he knows. But the governor seemingly wants nothing to do with it.
Well, it isn't a surprise that he doesn't want anything to do with it, because he knows what he did with this program. He took $55 million of taxpayer money and basically spent it on his reelection in 2010. They can't document where the money went. It was spent supposedly on anti-violence, but it didn't get spent in the most violent neighborhoods and in the city, and it was really only for the city and the near-in suburbs, which, there's violence in other parts of the state. So this whole thing from the beginning smelled fishy. We started calling him out on it the following spring in the appropriations process. CNN did a real big expose on it, I think, in 2012. The Auditor General came out with a scathing report on it. We keep learning more and more and more. And, just this week we learned that they gave money for a prisoner reentry program, first of all, that was supposed to be run out of a daycare. Mm-hmm. I don't know who thinks that's a good match. But this program never even existed. And they gave this money out. People want to know, what did you do with our money? Why did you do this? And was this incompetence or something worse? And I just think the governor has a special relationship with the people of the state. He's their one and lone chief executive. You do something on this magnitude, you owe it to them to answer every question that people have that's reasonable about what happened and cooperate fully. So far, he doesn't appear willing to do that.
State Senator Matt Murphy with us. It's Riley and Scot on WROK. I want to get back to the incompetence or worse question in a bit, but a couple of points that we bring up all the time. Make sure we're saying the right things here. Now, actually, the governor yesterday, quoting him, said, "The moment I learned that it wasn't going in the right direction, I did something about it." He's trying to take responsibility for stopping it cold. I think he said that previously, too. Now, that's not true, right? 18 months... 18 months, you guys were saying...
It's a demonstrably false statement.
Yeah, because...
it's a demonstrably false statement. We raised questions. This money, this program was set up and the money spent in the last quarter or so of 2010. In the spring of 2011, we started raising questions about it. I filed a Senate resolution to have the Auditor General audited. I filed that in 2011. The Senate President killed it. Now, it was out there. It was public. All of this was known in 2011. The next year, 2012, there's a House resolution to try to audit this program, another Senate resolution. The House resolution passed, and that's how the Auditor General started looking. All of these things happened publicly and before the governor ever said a word. CNN started sniffing around, and that's when the governor decided, I better make something look like I'm doing something here. That's when it started. But we were on this, and we were on it publicly beforehand. He absolutely knew things were going on. He wanted to brush it under the rug then. He's tried to brush it under the rug persistently and consistently ever since then. And he's still trying to say that line he spins, That's not true. So come and level with people. Stop telling people lies. You didn't take this on the minute you learned about it. You hoped it would go away then, just like you hope it'll go away now, but it's not.
Spending some time with state.
Point. Rod Blagojevich is in jail for a long time right now for, and not one thing he's in jail for amounted to $55 million of state money. So this is a big deal.
State Senator Matt Murphy spending some time with us here. You know, and the irony of this one is, and you're familiar with the governor's political history. You know, you got Governor Quin hiding behind the appearance of doing something where the political gadfly that was Pat Quin at one point would be going absolutely nuts over something like this.
You're right. Old Pat Quin would be horrified at the sight of new Pat Quin.
When we back to your criticism, I guess. I mean, the fact that you guys are pointing out there's problems, there's fraud. Now, the governor's spokesperson explains that away by saying that what you had was not legitimate criticism. I can't remember if it was Brooke Anderson or somebody else said, when you guys were criticizing, it was only because you didn't like the program, and that's why the governor didn't listen to you. When he got legitimate criticism, that's when he took action.
Well, I guess you can ask yourself, and the listeners can ask themselves, does that pass the smell test? Because it doesn't to me. I mean, you know, we're raising legitimate concerns. It has nothing. Wait, Republicans are for violence? I mean, come on. You know, we had questions right off the bat because we were already starting to learn that this money wasn't being spent where it was supposed to be spent in the most violent neighborhoods. Why wouldn't we? I mean, our whole mantra with regard to spending is spend responsibly and spend on things that work. You can't ever sell an anti-violence spending program as being something that works if you're not even targeting violence with the money. So that's a perfectly legitimate concern that was raised from the get-go. And, you know, he chose to ignore it, not because it wasn't a legitimate concern, but because he was hoping that the whole crisis would go away before it blossomed and threatened his job.
State Senator Matt Murphy with us here from the 27th District here in Illinois. It's Riley and Scott on WROK. The other thing we point out time after time, as some call this a slush fund, that seems about a pretty accurate description to me. But this money, as you mentioned, didn't go to the most violent neighborhoods in Chicago. And in fact, you couldn't just apply for it, right? You had to know somebody, a state rep, a state senator, a precinctman, an alderman had to go and call and say, you know what, this organization that I know, they're good people, they'll do right by the money. That's how this was implemented, right?
You know, and it's interesting because there are a lot of South Side state reps and senators who are angry with the governor because you couldn't even go to state senators and state reps. What you did was he chose 5 Chicago aldermen to kind of use to funnel this money through, and it looks like also potentially a powerful person in Thornton Township in South Suburban Cook County, where a lot of this money funneled through. Which again, you know, where is there precedent for that process if you really have an honest, legitimate program set up? It sure looks like what you did was you took money and you put it in the most sensitive areas where you were most worried about voter turnout, and you gave it to the people who are most politically close to the ground and connected who could drive that turnout, city aldermen, local party heads, and you use them to drive this turnout. And then, of course, you know, you look at what they did with some of the money. They paid kids to go to yoga. Mm-hmm. They paid kids to walk in a parade with Pat Quin, to hand out flyers. I mean, and you want to sit here with a straight face now and say that there was ever a sincere intention with this program other than to use this money to drive turnout when you were afraid your base wasn't going to turn out in an election, by the way, that he only won by 31,000 votes.
So, out of all this, then, we're to glean that your position is that Republicans like violence and hate yoga.
Well, so look at me, especially after a session with Severson's ice cream. The yoga thing is kind of self-evident.
State Senator Matt Murphy with us here for a couple of more minutes. It's Riley and Scott on WROK. Can we play just the beginning of this soundbite? Governor Quin yesterday was asked about some of this NRI stuff, and this is the governor from yesterday.
I do think, and I think it's important at all times, that we have programs in Illinois that fight violence. We cannot tolerate gang violence taking the lives of our children. In that particular summer of 2010, there were children shot and killed. There were police officers shot and killed. I spoke at their funerals.
Okay, so Matt, the governor, in defending the program, says, well, what do you want us to do? We've got to do something. We've got to have programs to fight violence. He then twists the emotional knife by saying, I went to these funerals. I did this. So he's trying to set it up as if this was very important to him personally, because we had to do something to stop the violence. You've got to do something about it. And yet, in the next breath, he wants to lay the blame on the grantees who got the money or the organization that he put in charge of it. We're supposed to give him all the credit in the world for putting the program together and then allow him to wash his hands as soon as it's implemented, and he had nothing to do and no knowledge of what happened after the fact. Is that about right?
Well, yeah, that sounds like what he would love to have happen is, judge me on my intentions, not on the outcome and the results. But his inner circle, emails confirm his inner circle was intimately involved in the selection of some of these grantees. So, he can't distance himself from it in that way. And the emotional appeal is particularly difficult to accept because, in my opinion, he knew what he was doing when he set this program up, and he did it for political purposes. And he's now using something that is sensitive, and, he's using violence and the deaths of people in dangerous neighborhoods to hide behind and use as an emotional card. The fact that you're hiding behind these people politically is disgusting. And I think this is a totally insincere defense of a program that was blatantly political with taxpayer dollars. And if you're really as concerned as you say about violence in these neighborhoods, put a real violence prevention program together. So, and you know what else you can do? You can improve the educational system so kids in these neighborhoods have more of a chance. You can improve the jobs climate in the state so when they come out of school, they have an opportunity to make an honest living and take care of themselves and their family. You want to eliminate violence. You want to reduce violence. Give people a shot in life. But the policies that Pat Quin he's been in charge. He's either been governor or lieutenant governor for going on 12 years, and the opportunities for people all over the state, but particularly in crime-ridden neighborhoods, is so depressed. He needs to change the way he approaches our jobs climate and our educational system if he's going to have any opportunity to provide opportunity for these people. That's where this stuff starts.
And State Senator Matt Murphy, the other excuse that the governor rolled out was you can't say it's political because none of the money went out before the election. Now, that ignores the fact that the promise was made, and now we have documentation that says they tried to get it out, but in true Illinois fashion, the check would have bounced. There was no money available.
Boy, you guys really have been doing your homework. You're spot on. That's exactly right.
Well, we applied for the money, but we didn't know anybody.
Right. Yeah, you send the check out, but because the check bounced before the election, somehow I'm supposed to believe that that this wasn't done for political purposes. The first check was cashed about 3 days after, I believe, the election. So, everybody knew what was happening here. And the whole setup just stinks. And rather than deal in with people and coming clean, he's going to continue to hide. He's going to continue to deceive people and duck this in the hopes that it goes away. But, we learn something new just about every week on this. This isn't going away. This program was set up with, I believe, dishonest intentions. But at a minimum, it is gross incompetence of a scale that should not be tolerated by the people who live here. And I suspect it might be even worse than that, and that it was, an intentional use of taxpayer money really to affect a political election.
He's State Senator Matt Murphy. Matt, as always, we appreciate you taking time for us. It's been too long since you've been on. Hopefully we'll talk to you again real soon, too.
I'd like that, guys. Thanks for having me, and thanks for getting this information out to people. They really need to know it.
Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Matt.